Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Skol Cole Show. I am your host, Cole Smith. Today, we're going to be talking about the Vikings' disappointing 22-6 loss to the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. And we're also going to talk about everything that's happened in the 24 hours since the game even kicked off, honestly, because that stuff is almost even more important than the game itself. We'll touch on that later on, though. Right now, we're going to start with the game itself. We're going to start with the defense because there's a few things to go over with the defense, even though I think the offense is the main talking point after last night's game. Vikings allowed 218 yards on the ground. They weren't able to contain the outside run to Bijan Robinson. Going into last night's game, he ranked third in the league in outside rushing yards over the past 2+ seasons. And the Vikings just didn't do a great job containing him. They didn't do a good job of tackling him either. Next Gen Stats had the Vikings with 9 missed tackles. That was evident from the very first run of the night, kind of set the stage. Bijan had 2 really good runs to start off and even put the game away kind of with it as the game went on. Vikings defense did kind of get a little stingier once the Falcons got into the red zone, but I think that overall the run defense was disappointing, especially with how good the Vikings were against the run all of last year. I don't know if that's because Andrew Van Ginkel was out, Harrison Smith was out, Blake Cashman, he's on IR right now. I think that cumulatively, those guys, as well as just new players on the defensive front, all contributed to one of the poorer run defensive um, performances under Brian Flores and honestly in the entire Kevin O'Connell tenure. Hopefully, this doesn't happen too much more. There's not many players like Bijan Robinson in the league. Unfortunately, the Vikings play 2 of them still this year. They've got Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry still on the schedule as the season progresses. So they're going to have to tighten this kind of stuff up. Hopefully, this is just early season woes. For those who remember the 2023 season, the Vikings defense was like really, really, really poor the first 3 games, and then it kind of tightened up before injuries just kind of let everything fall apart as the season went on. So hopefully, with more games, like Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen, like I think that they played a lot better week 1 than they did last night. But I think that with more time, that they'll be able to be better for the defense as a whole. Jalen Redmond, too, with a bigger role this year, and Isaiah Rodgers at cornerback, just getting more comfortable. Like even Byron Murphy Jr., he made the Pro Bowl in 2024. He wasn't super great his first year under Brian Flores. Um, Another guy, we're talking about injuries. This is really going to be the last thing I talk about on defense because I just don't think that enough of it matters in the long term of why the Vikings lost. I think Dallas Turner actually had a decent game. I think he actually had a pretty good game. I'm going to kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth, talk about containing outside runs as he's somebody who's partially responsible for that. But he had 2 pressures according to PFF last night. He got 1 cleanup sack. He even said post game it was kind of a cleanup sack. But next gen stats only had him with the 1 pressure, which came on the sack. But there was another play where he chased Michael Penix, flushed him out inside the red zone, forced a poor pass into the end zone. And then there was a sack on Jonathan Grenard's sack where Dallas Turner was covering Drake London. He was right on London. And if he wasn't on London, Penix could have gotten rid of the ball. Instead, with him covered up, Penix had to take the sack. It was still a really quick sack from Grenard, but Turner isn't. Everybody compares him to Jared Verse, and Jared Verse just doesn't play stand-up linebacker. It's almost 2 different positions. I think Turner, I don't know if he's completely lived up to the billing yet, but I think that there's enough there that people need to kind of cool off on the criticism of him right now. And Penix was getting rid of the ball pretty quick last night. It's kind of crazy. The Vikings even got 3 sacks. Um, and so it was Turner, it was Gennard, and then Jalen Redmond and Levi Drake Rodriguez got together for a sack too. So that's about all I'll spend on that. I didn't think it was like defense's best night, but overall, I think that they kind of stiffened up when they had to, kept the Vikings in the game overall. But unfortunately, that means we have to talk about the offense, why the offense wasn't able to take advantage of the game. So McCarthy, JJ McCarthy, NFC Offensive Player of the Week last week after the Bears game. He took 6 sacks in this game. He was only 11 of 21 passing for 158 yards, threw 2 interceptions. He fumbled 3 times and lost one of them. Uh, this I rewatched the game. I rewatched all 22 today, and it wasn't a great showing from McCarthy. There's no way to spin it into a good game. However, most of the sacks he took early on, he didn't stand a chance. Guys weren't getting open downfield, and the offensive line was getting beat so bad so quickly. Justin Skol, who is filling in for Christian Darrisaw at left tackle for the second straight week, struggled for the second straight week. He allowed 3 pressures, according to PFF. Will Fries and Donovan Jackson, 2 new guards, allowed 4 pressures each. Uh, Skol left the game in the third quarter and was replaced by Walter Rouse, who immediately got called for a holding on a big Jordan Mason run. Maybe the game's a little different if that doesn't get called. I thought it was kind of a weak call anyway. But overall, I think Rouse actually performed a lot better than Skol. So if Darrisaw can't play this week, I really hope he does, facing Trey Hendrickson against the Bengals. I'd actually honestly rather see Rouse over Skol. He was drafted last year. He's younger. He looked better last night. I think that there's just more upside. I don't think School's really giving too much of anything, especially in the passing game. My biggest issue, I think, with the game was how the Vikings handled short yardage situations inside the red zone at the 2 yard line. They got a little cute with JJ McCarthy. I don't know if he just kind of got too cute with a play action. He fumbled the ball at the 2 yard line, picked it up, kind of airmailed a ball to Justin Jefferson. There was there were some other plays where we're throwing on third and fourth and short, or third and short, where McCarthy like missed Jalen Naylor in the fourth quarter. Everybody saw that. Naylor has gotten open for about 4 go routes so far this season. And this is the only one that I'd really throw on McCarthy because usually it's been pass protection that's kind of broken down to where McCarthy hasn't been able to get back to looking for him. But Naylor's been pretty good, at least getting open deep. I don't know so much about the intermediate stuff, but anyway, I think that with all the additions the Vikings had on the offensive line, signing Jordan Mason, who's a tough back, good after contact. I think that the Vikings aren't exactly relying on the run game to take the pressure off of McCarthy as much, and I think that's forcing that's putting a lot of pressure on a guy who didn't play at all last year and is facing like the Bears. I don't know if the Bears are really that good this year, but they were tough in week 1, and the Falcons defense was damn near suffocating last night. Um, yeah, I think McCarthy or O'Connell got a little scared with how that fourth and short QB sneak went early in the game when McCarthy botched the handoff. I don't know, or botched a snap. I don't know if he was ever going to pick up that first down, but I think that almost like kind of set the tone for the game itself. Um, as far as injuries go, that's kind of the big talking point right now because the big thing to talk about right now is that McCarthy is going to be out for 2 to 4 weeks um, with an injury. It's high ankle sprain, which means that Carson Wentz is going to start. The Vikings trade for Wentz last month. Um, I'm hoping this isn't for very long. There's speculation. There's already people talking what happens if Carson Wentz performs really, really well. Do you just bench McCarthy permanently? And I guess that is a possibility if McCarthy's out for like 4 games and Wentz is great for 4 games. I guess you kind of have to think about it. If it's any less than that, I think that you just put McCarthy back in. Wentz hasn't been in the system very long. Like you said, he only got traded for last month. I think there's only so much of the offense that you can install in that short amount of time for him. At least McCarthy has been around the system. You still need to see kind of what he has, unless, like I said, unless Wentz is just like 2017 Wentz, which I don't see that happening. But there's other things I could get a lot more irritated about than Carson Wentz having a redemption tour with the Vikings. Apparently, McCarthy got injured on a run in the third quarter along the sideline. Kevin O'Connell thinks that it was a hip drop tackle. I think that he's got a case, so they're sending that into the league to review it. But essentially, he got a player hip drop tackles. I think the rule's kind of stupid because it's football. But if you're going to have it be a penalty, you need to be calling it. Um, Hopefully that being away from the game after playing a couple games helps McCarthy kind of see the game in a different light. I like I said, I don't think that he's been as bad as the stats have shown for 7 of the 8 quarters so far, just because I don't think he's really had much of an opportunity with especially just with guys getting open. Offensive line's been poor. Justin Skol has not been good. Uh, so I think that being able to step away from it would be good. But uh, yeah, we don't even know if Darisaw is going to play yet this week. Ryan Kelly's out, the center's out, or he's got a concussion. I guess he could play this week, but he left last night's game. Aaron Jones is going to be out with a hamstring injury. The other injuries going into last night's game, with Van Ginkel, who doesn't affect the offense, but Van Ginkel, Harrison Smith, Jeff Okuda, it's Blake Cashman. It's not looking super great. It kind of reminds me of how the Rams were early last season, where they almost beat the Lions at week 1 game. And they came out of that game so beat up that they just struggled. Like they were not good. And they actually turned the season around when they beat the Vikings on Thursday Night Football. That team was like 1-4 or 2-4, and a loss probably would have derailed them. They ended up being 10-6 and almost got to the NFC Championship. So I don't know. Maybe we're looking too far ahead to be talking NFC Championship after how last night's game went. But right now, I think the Vikings are just dealing with a lot of injuries. We had pretty good injury luck in 2024. This kind of feels like 2023, where just could not get out of their own way with injuries. I think that fortunately, none of these are season ending yet, but so hopefully, out of the bye, this team's looking a lot more healthy because they're going to need it with that post bye schedule with like the Eagles, Washington, Baltimore. The Lions look like they're not as bad as we thought last week, but overall, I think that a lot of people are ready to panic right now. I just don't think the Vikings can play much worse than they did last night. I also don't know if many defenses can play much better than the Falcons did last night. I'd really like to see McCarthy be able to redeem himself against the Bengals, so I don't think have a defense anywhere close to the Falcons. And it'd be at home, so you're not playing at Soldier Field on that surface and in that environment. So, for all that, I think that's disappointing that McCarthy's out. I don't think people should be ready to crown him as the next Christian Ponder. If Jordan Mason was running for 150 yards each game, and McCarthy's just throwing pick sixes in the end zone like Christian Ponder used to do, then I think that we'd have I think that we'd have a different discussion. Even then, it'd still be 2 games in, but I think that the Vikings are just going through it. And we're in a weird spot where the team is actually good, and we have a first-time starting quarterback, and he's got growing pains. I think Kevin O'Connell is getting acclimated to working with a rookie quarterback. He's had like Matthew Stafford with LA, Kirk Cousins, even Sam Darnold. I think that I took for granted. I thought Darnold didn't play well early on in his career. So if O'Connell could fix him, he can fix. He can easily build up JJ McCarthy. Well, at least Darnold knew what it was like to prepare for an NFL game, an NFL season going into 2024, where McCarthy just didn't have that experience. So I think it's a process. I don't think it can look much worse than it looked last night. And because of that, I'm hopeful, but I am always hopeful. Even if this team was 1-4, I'd probably be on here trying to explain a way that they can sneak into the playoffs because they did in 2008. But anyway, right now, I think that we just have to wait and see. As of this recording, McCarthy's not on short-term injury reserve yet, and hopefully he can play one of the international games coming up in a few weeks. I don't know. I'd hate to just have to shut him down for any extended period of time if we don't have to. Just because I do think that there are better times ahead. Even Bo Nix last year, he didn't throw a touchdown his first 2 games. He threw 4 interceptions in his first 2 games. Like it's a process, and we just have to remind ourselves that it's a process. We can't be comparing what Aaron Rodgers is doing or Sam Darnold's doing because that's great and all for week 2 of 2025, week 3, but would they be the answer in week 2 of 2026, 2027, 2028? Because that's ultimately what you're banking on with McCarthy, is that he's a long-term solution. And, throwing in the towel just because he had a crappy game on a short week after his kid was born, I think is just premature. So we're going to we're going to end this now. We got the Bengals game this week. Might do a pregame show for that. And hopefully that the Vikings can get back on track. We got Carson Wentz versus Jake Browning. I mean, who would have thought? I thought the Vikings were going to luck out with Burrow being out, and here they are. So I think it could be a bounce back game, but I'm guessing the Bengals think that they can get out to a 3-0 start also. So until next time, Skol Vikings. Go ahead and follow me on here. Hit the subscribe button. I'm assuming that's on here. I guess I need to look at my YouTube page more. And also follow me on TikTok. I'm usually posting several things, just giving quick thoughts throughout the day, kind of keeping people updated for people who aren't on their phone all day, scrolling and getting all the up-to-date Vikings news. I do that for you. So until next time, Skol Vikes.